Hey there. What I want to share with you today are the 5 steps to building a budget that doesn't suck. Before we jump in, I just want to clarify one thing. The term budget scares a lot of people, and there's a really negative connotation to that word. And what I think would be helpful is to instead think of it, instead of a budget, think of it as a spending plan. What I like about the difference is a spending plan means that you are intentionally putting your money towards the things that you want, right? You have a plan for that money, where a budget generally brings up the sense of restriction and simply being able to not do the things that you want to do. So just moving forward, budget equals spending plan. Scene. So the first step is to know your numbers. This is so important because if you don't know where you're starting from, then there's no way for you to know where you want to go. If you have no sense of how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, and where it's going, then you can't make any sort of informed decision. Having that awareness around your numbers is crucial, and that's why it's the first step. So how do you figure that out? Well, the best way to do it, honestly, is just to start tracking. Now, this isn't building a full-on budget. What it is simply tracking your spending for the next 2 to 3 weeks and getting a sense of where that money is actually going. This could mean that you write it down on pen and paper, that you log it in Excel, or you use a Google form or something like Mint to help you. Whatever tool works best for you, figure out how you're going to do it consistently, whether you track it in the moment or maybe set an alarm for yourself at night before you go to bed. But whatever it is, take the next 2 or 3 weeks and just start gaining that awareness by writing down how much money you're spending, where it's going, and doing that every day. Step 2 is to know what really matters to you. The reason this is so important is money is simply a tool. It's not a goal in and of itself. To have money really make a difference in your life, you need to know what the underlying things are that you want your money to help you get out of life. Do you love to travel? Do you love being around family? Would you like to further your education and maybe get a master's degree? Whatever those things are that matter to you, it's really important to figure those out so that you can more intentionally put your money towards those things. Step 3 is to set goals based on those things that are important to you. So let's say that travel is something that brings you a lot of happiness and is really core to what you do. That's great, but what does a tangible expression of that look like? You could say, I love to travel, but if you don't have any tangible goals, then it won't happen. So rather than just saying, okay, I want to travel, the next step is, so where? What does that look like? What form will that take? And when setting goals, make sure to make them SMART. That stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So if you love to travel, a goal could be you want to travel to Ireland by next November, which, depending on when you watch that, could be however many months, and that's going to cost you $4,000. So that gives you a specific goal. It's measurable, it's actionable. Well, realistic, TBD. It depends on how much money you're bringing in and how much you're spending, but as part of step 1, you'll have a better idea of that. And time-bound, yes, it gives you a certain time frame for when you need that to happen. So SMART goals are really important to actually making your values take shape and turn into something you can actually achieve. Step 4 is to create a plan to actually make those goals happen. Goals are great, but if you don't come up with some structure and an actual plan for how to execute them, then oftentimes they don't happen. So a good way of doing this is to list out all of the different goals that you have and then prioritize them and figure out which ones you can start working towards and when. So a good thing to note here is it's important not to just have the goals that you came up with based on your values and what's important to you, but also think of what other previous obligations you have coming up in the next 6 to 12 months that you'll want to put your money and your time towards. For example, if you're moving in 9 months and you live in a city like New York where moving is a hellish and expensive experience, then maybe you'll need to put away $1,500 to move within the next 9 months. Maybe you have a wedding coming up next year and you need to put $10,000 away for your portion of that. it's important to start adding these different things up so that you know what's coming down the pike so that you can prepare for it and know where to proactively put your money towards those things. Step number 5 is to choose a budgeting tool that works for you. There's so many different tools out there that honestly, it depends on your personality type for which one is best for you. You know, for those who love getting into the nitty-gritty, I'm looking at you engineers, then things like Mint, You Need a Budget, and Excel are really great tools because they get you into every single transaction, you categorize them, and you have perfect detail. And that's great for people whose minds work that way. However, for those who don't do really well in the nitty-gritty, it's important to have a system that lets you simply look kind of on a larger macro view. This is where something like bucket-based budgeting, a tool like First Step Cashflow, really helps. The idea is to set up different checking accounts, you know, one for your basic monthly commitments, a checking account for how much money you spend discretionary every month, and then actually a savings account so you can proactively put money away. What's cool about this system is, yeah, it's a little more involved to get it set up, but once you do, you automate payments, nailed it, to that first and second bucket. And then you also only need to control really the second bucket in terms of how much money you're spending every month in discretionary. Honestly, it depends on how your mind works, but the most important thing is to figure out a tool that works for you, and then hopefully you can stick with it. And ultimately, if you pick a tool and it doesn't work for you, try something else. Simply because something works for one person doesn't mean it will necessarily work for you. So those are the 5 steps. I just love this 5 thing to building a budget that doesn't suck. Let me know any questions or comments that you have down below, and thanks so much for watching.